So yeah, hi everyone, I'm Jenny. I'm an associate with Vocal and also the Senior Public Involvement Manager for the NNHR Research Support Service. So I led the public involvement for ID Liver, and this was one of the projects within it. So today I'm going to cover innovation in terms of who we recruited. So we thinking about beyond demographics, thinking actually how engaged those groups were as well when we were trying to reach underserved communities. Thinking about the roles that public contributors had within the team, so how embedded they were within decision making, helping us make those decisions. Innovation in terms of how we've developed our relationships, so trying to go for the gold standard of developing long-term relationships with communities and also making sure they didn't feel extractive for communities. Innovation in terms of the programme approach we took to public involvement. So the honest truth is that I ended up with a number of research projects to support around public involvement. So I developed a programme approach which worked really well, and there were lots of benefits for working in that way, which we'll share. And innovation in terms of the outputs that we developed. So I'm going to share these at the end. So basically we took action. So where people highlighted priorities, we were able to develop outputs. And one of them was actually launched as a part of the British Liver Trust Love Your Liver campaign. And so we were able to kind of act on people's priorities, which was nice. So innovation in terms of who we worked with. So we built our public network very much based on the data, so published and unpublished data, who was the most important people to kind of involve within the research. We did have a very kind of detailed approach to it, more detailed than you would often see in public involvement. But I think by working in that way, we felt reassured that people had those really lived experiences that were relevant to the projects. We were innovative in terms of how we work with people. So we built our public network around brokers. So rather than going to established groups that we used to offering feedback, we worked with brokers who were really just people who had a trusted kind of role within a community and had links to an established group. So here on the right is Shameen Jan, who ran a BodyFit active group in an area of Greater Manchester. So she became one of our brokers and she connected us to a really large group of South Asian women. So they worked with us on an ongoing basis. I think one of the things that we wanted to do was, because we were thinking about people having barriers to accessing mainstream services, was to work in that way and kind of to reach people who maybe weren't engaged in these mainstream services. I'm going to just give an example now of one of the challenges that we worked on with public contributors. So Steph came to us and she said, well, we've got a really small geographical area where we're carrying out screening, but we're not seeing people with the demographics of the area come through with further screening. So what we did was we worked with a broker within that area. So we connected with a community centre and recruited people around those demographics to come in and have a community conversation. By doing that, we asked people, what would you like to see? How would you like us to communicate differently with your communities? Steph made the changes with the team and which meant that they communicated differently. And subsequently, there was actually an uptake increase within that particular demographic group within that area. So it just shows how we kind of tackled problems together with the public. The next thing I'm going to share with you is innovation in terms of the public involvement roles. So all these people on the stairs here are governance advisors. So these people had formal roles within their research projects. And as well as that, they came together every month within a public involvement forum collectively with the research and clinical leads. What was different about this group was that it wasn't a satellite public involvement group where we took a topic for them to have a conversation about and feedback and feed it into the research. These people were embedded within the established decision-making structures of the research, and they were tackling the research problems as they came up with us. So they were aware of what was going on. I think on who the public advisors were, people were recruited linked to the particular lived experience that they had relevant to their projects. And we didn't want individuals to represent whole communities. So what we did was, as well as having this kind of governance level of public contributors, we also worked in that satellite way. So where there was a project challenge, like with the example of Steph's, we would look at who had the particular lived experience to kind of give us that feedback in that way. And working in that way, we developed a network of over 100 people who had an ongoing relationship with us to work with us with the different projects as we went on. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the relationships that we developed. So we did work differently with all the different communities that we worked with, but I've only got time to focus on one. So as I mentioned, we used a broker model and, they were trusted members of the community. They could help build trust in that area, advise us on what was appropriate in terms of culture, language, that kind of thing. it is really hard to build long-term relationships with research funding because of the nature of the funding ending. And it can feel really extractive for communities as well. So what we wanted to do was go beyond that transactional approach where people were paid for their time to also say, well, what else would you like from this relationship? For example, within the South Asian Women's Group, what they said was our broader community would really like to have conversations about liver disease risk. We prefer to have conversations about our health. Could you come in? So here is Lucy, who was the clinical and research lead at the time, talking to that group. And we did a number of those over the time that we worked with the group. And I think we met with over 150 South Asian women to kind of raise awareness from doing that. Because as I say, we wanted to kind of build and put more into that relationship. Sorry. The next thing I'm just going to cover is the approach that we took for the programme view. So just bear with me on, I might have a pointer. Right. So here, so this is the Diagnostics Accelerator project. Everything that I tell you about this project is replicated for these other projects above. So they were running at the same time. So in the Diagnostics Accelerator project, there were 2 governance advisors. So those people on the stairs who were embedded within the decision making. If there was a particular challenge, we would here recruit a community broker. The example that I gave was that community centre. And we would then work here with that smaller group that was built around a particular lived experiences of that challenge. And that in this group here is how we developed that 100 group of plus people to have a say in our research. In these individual projects, people would attend their project meetings as governance advisors. Then here in the PPI forum, we would also come together every month with also this group here. So clinical and research leads, program leads. So we had a really kind of dynamic group there that was really focused on public involvement and had that space. And there were lots and lots of different benefits from working in that way. So there was huge value for money. So each of the projects didn't have 2 governance advisors. They had all of these advisors who were able to kind of give feedback in their projects. There was huge cross-fertilisation across these different projects between the clinical and research teams. When there was a new project that came in for funding, this group was able to act as a sounding board and it was ready to go. In terms of public contributors, when they joined a project, they could hear about opportunities, not just from their single project, but all of the projects, and put themselves forward for the things that were relevant to them. For the communities, it was really relevant because we were actually able to develop those links and those relationships beyond the life of a single funding stream, which is so rare. So when a project ended, we could still sustain that relationship. And I think what was also really important was that within research, there can be a real fatigue with communities where different groups of people are coming to have the same conversations with communities. So we wouldn't do that. So if, say, one of the projects had a conversation with a group, then we could build on that. And rather than going back and having the same conversations, another project could actually take that further forward. So it helped the communities have that ongoing relationship and conversation with us, and it accelerated the work within the projects more quickly as well. I think the last thing to just say on this is that in terms of relationships, so we developed a really strong relationship with the British Liver Trust. That benefited all the projects because it was relevant to them all. And when we were developing outputs, they were often relevant to all the different projects, so we could kind of co-produce those as well with the public, which was really great benefit, and I'll share a couple of those now. This one here, I'm going to skim through really fast because I want to show a video, but basically over 4 years we had conversations with the public about ID liver and ADA kind of priorities. We got a group together to look at all of that data, and this is what they came back with in terms of their priorities in terms of liver disease early detection. What I just want to share is that when we were speaking to people who had diagnosed liver conditions and also people who had increased risk factors for developing liver disease, often their priorities to funders were very similar. We found that here, but also in the next output that I'll share with you as well. So this is the last slide, and basically we developed a training resource called Let's Talk About Liver Disease Risk, and it was a free resource to help teams talk about liver disease risk better with their patients. There was a 1-hour session plan, a PowerPoint presentation, and as I said, we co-launched it with the British Liver Trust as a part of their Live Your Liver campaign last year, 2025. People shared their experiences and preferences, and it was very much co-produced.